Billy Napier and the Florida Gators dominated the second transfer portal window.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. I am Brandon Olsen. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. And like I said, in my opinion, Florida Gators dominated the second transfer portal window. And obviously, I don't mean dominated as in they're like, oh, they run into all these guys. No. That was also never a possibility, though. We talked about that. You can go back and check the tape from, it was 3 or 4 weeks ago? Maybe actually longer than that. Actually, before the second portal window opened. But we were on the show and I said, hey, I spoke to someone inside the program and I was told we want to be really selective in this window. Like, I know that there's going to be people hitting the portal. We don't care about that. We want to bring in players that we know can contribute, but we want to be really selective about who we're bringing in. And that leads to, well, you're going to be selective. You're limited on scholarships. We're still trying to figure out what exactly is going to happen for the Florida Gators to have Elijjhah Badger on scholarship on roster. But that's their problem. Okay. I'm just here to tell you my opinion of these things, educate and inform. That's what we do here on Locked On Gators every single day. But Elijjhah Badger coming in, the most impactful immediate transfer. And I don't know necessarily who's technically going to be wide receiver one on this team, but that's the thing. It could be either Trey Wilson or Elijjhah Badger. It could be either. And that's the huge benefit there. That's the huge benefit of having both of them, is that it could be either one of them. And we've talked about this before. I think that having Elijjhah Badger allows the Florida Gators kind of two things here. We know that they want to, keep the ball to Trey Wilson and Elijjhah Badger kind of frequently. I don't know who's going to be wide receiver one, but it gives you really two wide receiver one possibilities. I think that the trios that they're going to bring out, whenever you see that 11 personnel, which you're going to see a good bit of 11 personnel, you're going to see a good bit of 12 personnel. It's how this offense is going to run, okay? And if you don't know, 11 personnel is having 3 wide receivers, 1 running back, 1 tight end. 12 personnel is 2 wide receivers, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, okay? 12 personnel is my favorite personnel in football. Honestly, it's 12, then 21, and then 11. I don't care. Give me a fullback. I want to see it. I want to see a fullback or 2 running backs there. We won't, but I want to. But I do think that when you see 11 personnel, three receivers on the field, you'll see 2 rotations that are the most common this year. It's going to be Elijjhah Badger out wide, Trey Wilson out wide, Chimere Dike in the slot, or you'll see Elijjhah Badger outside, Khalil Jackson, and Marcus Burke outside. From my expectation, Marcus Burke's going to play this year. Just know, that's my expectation here. Marcus Burke outside and Trey Wilson in the slot. And all of it revolves around Trey Wilson. Do you want him in the slot to get that mismatch? Okay, then we're going to see a lot more of Khalil Jackson, Marcus Burke in this game. Do you want Trey Wilson out wide and exploit that mismatch? Okay, then we're going to see a lot of Chimere Dike in the slot. I think that's how it's going to work out. I do think Tank Hawkins is going to play more than people expect him to, because I do think that he gives you, hey, we're going to have Trey Wilson running routes, running wheel routes, posts, digs, whatever we're going to see. And we're going to have Tank Hawkins running those gadget routes, if you want to call them gadget routes. But playing in that gadget role, I think that's the combination that you're going to see here. So bringing in Elijjhah Badger opens up your offense. And I know so many people go, well, you can't just double Trey all game. Here's the thing. Early in the season, at least, I don't think teams are planning on doubling Trey Wilson. Why would you? Realistically, why would you just go into the season and say, hey, we're going to double Trey Wilson, even without Elijjhah Badger? I think that you need Trey Wilson to show you, at least for a few weeks, that he can be that guy. He hasn't proven he's that guy last year. I've said that before. A lot of his stuff was underneath and creating after the catch. And that's fine. Like, you could be damn good at that. I do think he's damn good. But that's not what you double. You don't typically double those guys. So I think having Elijjhah Badger means that Elijjhah Badger, until Trey Wilson proves his worth to defenses, I think Elijjhah Badger is more likely going to be the guy that gets doubled. Trey Wilson is going to constantly be in motion also. You can't really double those guys because they bring it across the formation and you're planning on doubling him with that outside corner and the safety. Good luck, buddy. So I don't think Trey Wilson is going to be the one doubled, but I think bringing in Elijjhah Badger confirms that Trey Wilson won't be doubled. You could double Badger. Elijjhah Badger can have 0 catches. If he's getting doubled, I don't give a damn because that means that Trey's eating. So I don't think that that's going to be a problem there. I also did want to talk about Billy Napier, I think it was last week, mentioned that in this second transfer portal window, just not this specific transfer portal window, but just in the second transfer portal window, he likes to focus on bringing in players that play skill positions. So receivers, corners, because those are guys that you can kind of work in quicker. And by that, he means you learn your routes, you learn your role, you're specifically, you're going to be the slot receiver. These are the routes you're going to run most frequently. These are the play calls, stuff like that. And it's less about developing a chemistry with the players next to you. Like offensive line is so much, I've said it a million times, offensive line, which we'll talk about later, is so much about developing a chemistry as a unit. Sometimes your 5 best offensive linemen isn't your best offensive line because it's about having chemistry as a unit. I liken it to the Giants when they had Eli Manning and they were actually winning Super Bowls. They never really had just all pros throughout the offensive line. It was like they'd have Chris Snee was dominant, and they'd have a couple other guys that were here and there, but it was really about performing as a unit. And that's what it's about, offensive line as a unit. And so I think that that's vitally important, where you need time to kind of grow into that. Can't do it too much in the second portal window. But a receiver, it's like, hey, like these are the routes you're running. If you're open, it's the quarterback's job to get you the ball. And chemistry matters as a receiver, absolutely. Like quarterback receiver chemistry absolutely matters. I'm not saying it doesn't. But I'm saying that that's easier to pick up. And also your quarterback's job is to get the ball to playmakers and open receivers. And so if you're open and the quarterback can get you the ball there, just if he's throwing to the open receiver, that chemistry will develop quickly. And you can do that in practice. You can do that in routes on air, because a lot of it is, well, you know, I know how fast this receiver is. If I'm trying to get him the ball here, if he's open, this is where he's going to be and where I have to throw to him. And you can do that in routes on air. If you're running your routes at game speed, you can do that in routes on air. Offensive line, can't really do that unless you're fully engaged with defenses and they're throwing the kitchen sink at you. Takes a while. So I think that that's part of why Billy Napier looks at it. And on defense at cornerback specifically, a lot of the time you're left kind of on an island out there, which is fun to pick up. Again, like I've mentioned it before, like I've played corner, I've played safety. Corner's quicker to pick up, I guess. But it's easier to pick up as opposed to playing, you know, like as opposed to working with the defensive line units where you're constantly stunting. That's harder to pick up. At corner, you kind of get your responsibility, especially in the college level. You kind of get your responsibility, and that's your responsibility. Whether it's cover 2, cover 3, cover 4, you're not really working a ton with the people, or safety is usually the one communicating it to you when things are going on. So I do think that corner, and that's why Billy Napier focuses on the skill positions, skill groups during this second transfer portal window, because you can pick it up and develop and work through that and kind of find, I don't want to say easier, but quicker transitions. We'll say quicker transitions, or quicker acclimating into this team at those skill position spots. Running back, a lot of feel for your offensive line, trusting who's going to be there, things like that. So looking at these pass catchers, and cornerbacks, safeties, even too. Because again, safety, you have to be a communicator, but you can communicate that, be pretty quick with it if you're an experienced player. So I do think that Billy Napier's approach is good as far as trying to just bring in a key skill guy or two every second portal window and kind of focus more in that first portal window of filling in the weaknesses on the team. So I do love the approach. Like I said, I like the way that Billy Napier has handled things, has approached high school and college roster building. I've said I'm a nerd. I have no problem saying that, no problem admitting that. I like the way that Florida's been building the actual roster itself. We are going to talk about Cormani McClain and Jason Zandamela for the rest of the show. We're not ignoring anyone here. But first, a quick word from LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And LinkedIn isn't just a job board. Like, I want to make that abundantly clear. It's not just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else. And I do mean anywhere else. You'll find the real, I don't even know what to call them, the real candidates on LinkedIn. I'm just saying. Just saying. And on LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And also, I just want to throw a shout. Thank you so much to everyone that tuned into the Cormani McClain live stream and Elijjhah Badger live stream last week. We had just insane viewership and engagement last week. It was awesome. It's not a common thing to have in the middle of May typically. So thank you all so much. We are going to do a couple live streams this week. I sent a message to the subtext, the Locked On Gators insiders. If you want to join that, the link's in the description below. It's joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGators. But we're going to do a couple live streams that are going to be kind of mailbaggy. We're going to try to break that out. But the Florida Gators added Cormani McClain also in the second transfer portal window. He was actually the first commit they got last week. We're going in reverse order of when Florida got the commits. And I've said this before about Cormani. I will continue to say about Cormani. Cormani McClain has a ton of potential. Like, I know that I've sounded pessimistic on him. I want to make it clear. I'm not pessimistic at all. I do think that, or I don't want to say at all, but I do think that Cormani McClain has a ton of potential and can be one hell of a football player. And I've said that, like, he was a 5-star recruit for a reason last year in 2023 cycle. It's just that he needs a lot of technical refinement. He was a 5-star recruit because of his size, his length, his athleticism. Like, that's why he was there. There's different reasons for 5 stars to be 5 stars, but his reasoning is that he had length you can't teach, size you can't teach, aggressiveness you can't teach, and he has the athleticism that you can't teach. And that's why he specifically was a 5-star. What he needs to do is kind of just put his head down and work. And look, I understand all the concerns about him being a knucklehead, whatever it may be, whether it's pot, whatever. I'm not going to be judgmental about that at all. If you can do it and be effective, then do that. But if you can't do it while being effective, then don't do it. Simple as that. Again, I don't know Cormani personally. I'm not going to say anything about it, but I will say that we have his high school and Deion Sanders. Both coaches said, hey, he doesn't work hard. That's where I go, okay, well, if you don't work hard, like, you need to pick that up. Because as someone, when I was coming out of high school, my first couple years at college, I wasn't the hardest worker. I'll say that. I was just like, hey, I'm in college. I'm away from home. I'm going to enjoy myself. And so I get that. But also, I wasn't an athlete Far from it. I tried to be, but far from it. But Cormani McClain, like you got to put your head down and work hard. And I know that doesn't click for everyone. Like the reason I brought up my personal experience going to college is that it doesn't click for everyone in a year or two. Some guys, it never clicks to become a hard worker and kind of recognize like, hey, like I've got this God-given ability. I need to put in the work to actually bring it and maximize that potential. And for some guys, it just doesn't click. For a lot of guys, I think it actually just doesn't click in those college years. And that's another thing. It doesn't mean that you're going to be lazy forever. It just means, hey, you're still a kid. Like, I get it. I get it where we go, like, they're making millions of dollars. I can criticize them, or hundreds of thousands of dollars, or whatever players make. Point being, players are getting paid. It's fair to criticize them. I just want to say that for me, I don't think work ethic is something that really just happens like that. I think it's something that you gotta develop long term, and we'll see when it actually does happen. And sometimes you need to be put in the right situation. So for Cormani McClain, moving from Boulder, Colorado to Gainesville, maybe that's what he needs. Like maybe that is what's going to click. A lot of times it's being put in a situation that will help you unlock your potential. And so for Cormani McClain, maybe that's being in Gainesville. Maybe that's being close to home, but not home. Maybe that's being in Billy Napier and Will Harris's secondary, and Austin Armstrong and Ron Roberts, and having that kind of supporting cast. Maybe it's being in a locker room culture like the Florida Gators have. Because I don't care, and I've said this a billion times, I don't care how you feel about the job Billy Napier's doing on the field. I promise you, off the field, that locker room culture is rock solid. And David Soderquist, when I was on High Top Sports last week, David kind of dropped the nugget that Billy Napier went to the Florida Gators locker room and allowed them to decide if they take Cormani McClain as a walk-on. He allowed the locker room to decide if they accept bringing Cormani McClain here. And the locker room approved it. Like this is not a kid who's going to come in and hurt the locker room. He's coming into a locker room that had a say in whether or not he's welcome there. And they said, yeah, you're welcome. So maybe that's what Cormani McClain needs. But the Florida Gators, like make no mistake about it. I think Cormani McClain is too light to be an impact player this year. I also think Cormani McClain wasn't good or isn't good enough to be an impact player right now based off his 2023 film. I don't think he's good enough to be an impact player in the SEC right now. However, like this is a player that we know has traits you cannot teach. This is a player that we know has athleticism you cannot teach. We know that this is a player that has potential and you can't teach potential, okay? This is a player that needs to get his head on straight. It's a player that needs to put in work to become better. And this is a player that right now is in, I think, as ideal a situation as he can be put in. Okay, yeah, he's got whatever off field, he's got whatever work ethic concerns. But as far as being put in a situation where you can thrive, there isn't a better one for a player like Cormani McClain. He's close to home, but not home. But he's close to home. He's being put in a locker room environment that has said, yeah, we're fine with you being here. We welcome you. Come on in. He's with a coaching staff that, again, I don't care what you say about the on-field coaching ability. He's with a coaching staff that we know is at least filled with people that are willing to work hard and generally are good people. Like everything's being put in Cormani's favor right now. It's just about, and again, I'll say this, it's just about putting your head on straight and working hard. And if you can't do that here, you can't do that anywhere. It's truly as simple as that. And I'm not saying that every environment is perfect for everyone because everybody's different. But as far as Cormani McClain, what we know about him, what we know the coaching staff is willing to do with him, what we know that Florida said, hey, you're a walk-on for the fall. But you put your head down, you work hard, you can earn a scholarship this December. Like, that's not out of the realm of possibility. It's not like, oh, you're a walk-on, then you're a walk-on forever. Mm-mm. This is, you screwed up in the past. We're going to give you an opportunity to kind of earn it and get back right. But you got to actually do that. And so for Cormani, if you can do that, I have no doubt that he'll be welcomed with open arms and that he'll be able to actually find the success that he needs. But he's not someone I expect to work to play too much this fall. But in the future, could be a superstar addition. Genuinely, I do think that Cormani McClain has legitimate, like, first round NFL potential. I'm not going to say Sauce Gardner, because Sauce Gardner was built different, built similar to Cormani, but you get my point. But Cormani is someone that can get to the NFL and thrive there, especially if he's put in the right defensive system, that whatever he would thrive in. But Cormani is someone that can make it to the NFL as a first round pick, genuinely. It's just you got to put in the work to get there. We are about to talk about Jason Zandamela, the last player that we're talking about, and the first player that Florida brought in his second transfer portal window on scholarship. But first, we're going to get a quick word from FanDuel. It is winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on and make every playoff shot count. And remember that FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. I'm just saying, if you're not on FanDuel yet, tomorrow, Dinger Tuesday, the best day of the week, always. Just throwing that out there. Dinger Tuesday, you bet $25 on someone to hit a home run. And if they don't hit a home run, you get $5 in bonus bets for every home run that is hit. If they do, then you get the payout for it. Just saying, Dinger Tuesday is a beautiful day. Just saying. To wrap up today's show, we are talking about Jason Zandamela, who, if you recall correctly, Jason Zandamela was a top 50 offensive lineman in the 2024 recruiting class. He went to USC for the first semester of college. And basically he was like, hey, look, I don't like it here. I want to be closer to home. And that's as simple as that. Florida also running Caleb Rillos, but we're not going to talk about him much today just because he's not going to play this year. That's a red shirt, some kind of Department of Defense thing. It's a weird thing. I'm not going to pretend that I understand everything with the NCAA and their rulings and universities. It's whatever. But Jason Zandamela is someone that we are going to talk about, who I also, again, I don't expect much from him this season. And I know that when he committed, it was big news and a big deal because, hey, this is a Florida 2024 class that kind of fell apart on early signing or in the early signing window. You lost Amaris Williams, you lost Jamonte Waller about a month before that. It kind of fell apart. You thought you might lose Elijjhah McCray. Some ill-informed people thought you might lose DJ Lijjhah. I was told that was never a true expectation or realistic possibility there. But for Florida, it kind of underwhelmed because you were, hey, we're top 7 or whatever it was, and then you fell down to 13, 14. And it didn't go great. But I will say, you look at who they brought in from this 2024 high school class. You brought in Jason Zandamela from the transfer portal, but high school freshman, or was a college freshman this year. You brought in Jameer Grimsley, same situation. Went to a different school, and before he ever touched a college football field, Florida Gator. So Jason Zandamela is not someone I expect much from this season. Big deal to bring him in, absolutely. Big deal to contribute in 2024, not in my opinion. And again, it's not that he's not good enough. It's the typical rule of I do not want a true freshman offensive lineman playing significant snaps. Just saying, historically, those guys aren't good. And I will bring this up again, and it's not because of Miami thing, but Francis Mauigoa, arguably the best freshman lineman in the country last year. was not good. And I know they're going to go, oh, his PFF run blocking grade is good. His PFF pass blocking grade is average. That's not a good player, especially when you consider he's one of the most penalized offensive linemen in the country, right? That's not a good player. That's good for a freshman. That's very good for a freshman. It's not good overall, in my opinion, and even on the film, not good overall, but for a true freshman, very good. I don't want someone who I go, oh yeah, for a freshman, you're good, but you're not good overall. I don't want you starting for me. I don't like that little disclaimer you have to put. It's the same thing with Johnny Wilson out of FSU. I covered the NFL draft as well with Giants country and NFL 33, and it's the same thing with Johnny Wilson, where it's like, yeah, you separate well for someone who's 6'7", but you're not playing in a 6'7" only league. Like, you're 6'7", you need to separate for someone who's just playing receiver, and you don't. And that's my concern with Johnny Wilson, future tight end. But Jason Zandamela is not someone I expect to play this year, because I don't think true freshmen on the offensive line in the SEC are typically able to go. That's another thing also. Francis Marigoa played in the ACC. Jason Zandamela playing in the SEC. Big difference talent-wise. I'm just saying. So I don't expect Jason Zandamela to play much this year. I do think that he can have an immediate impact in the sense that Florida now has the opportunity to move Rod Kearney back to guard, keep Jason Zandamela as your backup center, and I will knock on wood right now, if something were to happen to Jake Slaughter, if he were to get hurt, which again, knocking on wood, really hope it doesn't happen, then Jason Zandamela is forced into playing time. And I'm okay with being forced into playing time because of injuries you can't plan for. But you can say, hey, we'll have Jason Zandamela as our backup center this year. We'll put Rod Kearney to right guard or left guard, I don't care, and let him compete for a starting spot with whoever it may be. I don't care, genuinely. The big impact for me, at least for Jason Zandamela, is that you bring him in and he doesn't play right now, but he's your backup center. Rod Kearney can compete again, genuinely, with whoever you want to compete with at guard. If you want to say that's Damian George at right guard, if you want to say that's Elijjhah Harris at left guard, if you want to say that's Bryce Lovett at right guard or left guard, I don't care. Put your best team out there. Put your best line out there. I will say that for me, this is similar to Cormani, where I go, hey, your impact in 2025 is more important. 2026 is more important. Same thing with Jason Zandamela. Because with Jason Zandamela, you bring him in, and now on the interior of your offensive line, I'm not even saying position specific, but the interior of your offensive line for the Florida Gators for 2025 and 2026, again, you look at what you brought in, and the 2022 class really did not go well. Just in general, that class, like that transition class, normally doesn't go very well. It didn't go well for Florida. But you look at the 2023 and 2024 classes, and the interior of your offensive line is what's going to be playing for 2025, 2026. You've got Rod Kearney there. You've got now Jason Zandamela in there. You've got Elijjhah Harris in there. You've got Bryce Lovett has done nothing but impress, especially in recent months. You've got those four right away, and you look in the future, and they're your options there. You could also have, if you hit on someone like Noel Portniagan, the rookie or the freshman, Billy Napier calls them rookies, and it throws me off every time. The freshman guard from Germany this year. You look at if any of the other players move in from tackle to guard, Marcus Maskell could be a guy that does that. You could also look at Mike Williams. Mike Williams is too tall, I think, to move into guard. But you look at the guys that Florida's brought in, and you go, hey, in the future, this is a strong core. Like, again, I don't care what combination you have out there. I don't care who's playing where. Get your best guys out there. But having Jason Zandamela now gives you another player where we say all the time on this show that you can't really look at who you have and just go, okay, like we know that they're all going to work out. No, you stack talent and you go, hey, only some of these guys are going to work out. But if we've got enough of these guys and some of them work out, we'll have a good football team. And so you look at the interior offensive line and you look at all the 6 guys I just named, maybe 7. If you only need 3 of them to hit on the interior. So you don't even need 50% of them to hit. You have 3 of them hit and you're cooking with grace, right? So Florida, I know that 2 of these 3 guys we talked about, and we go, oh yeah, like they're going to be future players. Yeah, I don't care if they're future players. They're freshmen. One's a sophomore, but they're young players that if they redshirt this year, good. If they don't redshirt and they end up contributing, hopefully it's because they earned that and not because of injury or anything like that. But Florida, like you came in and you hit a home run in the second transfer portal window for Billy Napier. Just absolutely. Even if the season doesn't go great, as far as building the roster, you nailed the second transfer portal window. And so for right now, you're on fire and you're winning. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow talking more Florida Gators football. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33, and I will see you all next time.